All right, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, William here from Film Snob Reviews. I am here with Amber McGinnis, the director of the excellent romantic comedy, I guess you'd call it, International Falls. Introduce yourself, Amber.
Amber McGinnis. International Falls is my feature film debut. I'm so excited to have brought it out into the world. We spent 5 or 6 years developing it, so it's been a really long journey and a lot of work. So I'm very proud to have it out there for the public to see now.
You know what? I want to say that the love that you had for this feature, since it did take so long, it really comes out in the characters and in the tiny moments along the way through the journey in this small Minnesota town. How did you get such a really talented and fantastic cast? You have Matthew Glave, Rachel Harris is amazing, and of course, top to bottom, there's just these little moments between all these characters, and then of course Rob Hubel is holding the whole thing together. How did you get all that to happen?
Oh, man. Let's see. Where do I start? I mean, I feel like any good story starts with an amazing script, right? And Thomas Ward, our writer, he had spent a long time developing this because it was a two-person play before it ever became a screenplay. So it had a life on the stage before it ever hit the screen. He was a couple drafts into the screenplay when he sent it to me, and I had the good fortune of knowing an amazing VP, Drew Aiello, who I had worked with on a short film before. He introduced me to my co-producer, Nick, and then Nick helped me find an amazing casting director who then put the script in Rachel Harris's hands. And once Rachel said yes, it made it a lot easier to get other yeses. And then also just, again, the strength of the script and the story. And I think that, one of the things I was so grateful for with Rachel and Rob is that, because they both come from comedy backgrounds, they're both improvers, right? Rachel came up through the Groundlings and Rob came up through UCB. So they have comedy backgrounds and they typically play comedic characters. So I knew they'd be able to bring a lot of, comedy to what could be a sort of bleak drama. And I think because of that, they were also looking for an opportunity to to really sink their teeth into a more character-driven story, because they do sort of get cast in a lot of the, comedic side character roles. So I think it was, A, they were just a perfect fit for the story, and B, I think it ended up being a good opportunity for them to sort of show the public what they are capable of beyond comedy.
Yeah, I think they did stretch their muscles a little bit here, and I think that they probably had some really fun moments off screen, because the chemistry on screen is actually really, really nice. It made the whole thing an absolute pleasure to watch.
Yeah, they had done a couple projects before, so they had that rapport and trust built. So I think that helped us as we stepped into the process. And then also we just allowed improv to be part of our process as well. There are a couple scenes that are, I'd say 90% of the dialogue is pretty verbatim what is scripted, but there are a few scenes like the walk and talk in downtown International Falls where that's just Rachel and Rob riffing, just off the cuff stuff, which it was so much just to have that trust as a team for them to be able to do that, and they were just so game to roll with it. It was awesome.
I love that. There are two particular points I wanted to bring up to you that I wrote about in my review of the film. By the way, if you haven't read that, guys, you should.
I have read it, yeah.
Thank you for checking that out.
Thank you. Yeah, of course.
One of the things I mentioned was that it never devolves into what it looks like it would be. Like, you look at the poster, it has this twee sort of look to it. There's just snow and that font that's always in all of those mumblecore films, that certain font. But it never devolves into any of that. It never turns into a standard rom-com. It never turns into a twee story. How were you able to balance all those, bones between, this quirkiness and this romance and this bleakness and this actual nihilism happening here?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, it was sort of the trickiest thing about the process, right? And it was thing that the editor, Asen Ozdag, and I just spent hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of hours just laboring over with the edit, because, the timing of adding or subtracting two different frames, or going with this take that leaned a little more into comedy versus that take that, leaned a little more into the drama. There's a lot of, crafting and shaping involved to sort of reach that tone. And, ultimately we wanted to kind of set it up as what could be a typical rom-com. But then once the theme comes clear to the audience that this is a story about authenticity, in my opinion, a lot of rom-coms are not very authentic. They're very trite. They're very predictable. I feel like once we start digging into those meatier themes, it felt right to, go into the drama. And in a story that's all about using comedy to mask sadness, I just felt like it was such a beautiful opportunity to show how those two things can fit side by side in life. Because, rom-com it's romantic, it's a comedy, it is this thing, right? Real life isn't like that. A lot of times two things sit side by side. I mean, even as, this horrible pandemic is going on in our lives right now, there are people who are looking for the silver linings of, it's giving me time to catch up on this project, or I'm finally getting time to sit still and, think about what I want to do next with my life, or showing me what's important in life. And we can hold that in one hand and also say, yeah, this is terrible, what's happening in our world. So in my mind, like, showing the two things at the same time was the tonal goal of the film.
Yeah, I'd say mission accomplished too, if that was your goal. The other thing I wanted to bring up was oftentimes, and I mentioned this, oftentimes with romantic comedies like this, we either get these teenagers or we get these sexy late 20s, early 20s stuff. Here we've got people who are weathered and lived and have lived a life. You know what I mean? Rachel Harris's character has 2 kids. Rod Peoples got a kid of his own, and he's struggling with just living in this existence that he doesn't really care about. What was the catalyst there to say, man, these characters are flawed, but in their flaws is where I can do all of my best work?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the more life you've lived, the more comedy you can sort of pull from that, right? That was part of the idea. And then also, I just felt strongly that we should be able to reinvent ourselves no matter where we are in our lives. And, hopefully for most people that doesn't mean like turning their families upside down as it does for Dee, but, I wanted to show that it's important that whether you live in a small town or not, like no matter what your age, you can, if there's something you want to do, you should go for it. There shouldn't be anything holding you back, especially yourself, And, that's another thing that I'm proud of with the film. Like, the story isn't about a woman from a small town who has this dream and then she gets out of the town and becomes famous, or because it's not about that. It's not about her becoming a successful, famous comedian that makes a lot of money or something like that. It's about, her having the guts to pursue her dreams, and like all she can do is, like the movie says, is try, and the trying has to be enough.
That I think that sums that up really well. You can really tell you spent hours with these folks, even though we only get to spend an hour and a half with them. That you can tell that you really spend a long time with them.
Yeah, they feel like friends now. Yeah, I spent so much time with them.
I always like to spend the second half, after we've talked about the movie and all the fun parts about it, I always like to spend the second half, if I've never had somebody on before, getting to know that person as an artist. So
okay.
let's talk about you, Amber, and all your experiences and things you've gotten to do. What are some of the projects that you've done that you're proud of?
Right. Well, I come from a theater background, so most of my training and the work early in my career has been for live theater productions. I've been based in the D.C. area for the last 10 years and have been working as a freelance director here. So, I have been picking up film work as a freelancer, doing stuff for government, interactive things. I had done short films and educational things and stuff like that. And I felt I'd done a few shorts, and I just felt like I was ready to take the next step and do a feature film. And so once Thomas shared the script with me, I loved it so much. It was one of those things where once we said yes to it, there was no looking back, and none of us really had an idea that it was going to take so long to get off the ground and raise the money and everything. But yeah, it took us like 5 years to kind of get everything going, and I started my own production company to produce the film, and sort of, had no business background at all, so I had to learn how to do that. I had to learn how to pitch to producers, and I've had to learn how to market the film and send it to distributors and all of that kind of stuff. So I feel like I've gotten this whole, film business education as I've gone through the experience of making this film, which I'm super grateful for. And beyond this, we sold the film to Gravitas Ventures, who is our domestic distributor. So it's available on all the streaming platforms now, or the transactional streaming. So like your Prime Video, iTunes, stuff like that. And we're still working on international sales. And then beyond that, I'm working on developing my next pitch. I've got a film called Girl in Every Corner that I co-wrote with a playwright friend of mine that is about a female MMA fighter, so another strong female protagonist. And yeah, so starting to pitch around that next project and get this next thing going, and trying not to slow down at all.
Like one thing you mentioned there with the strong female characters, we need more of those. We need more strong female directors. So keep flexing those muscles, because we need more of those.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one thing that I'm really proud of is one of the festivals that International Falls made a stop at this past year was the Bentonville Film Festival in Bentonville, Arkansas, that Gina Davis started.
Yeah.
And this year they're doing this special fellows program where they've invited 8 female alumnus from the festival to be part of this fellowship program, where they are offering us mentorship opportunities and pitching opportunities just to continue to break through those barriers, to give female filmmakers more opportunities to tell their stories, and not just tell the story right, but just like any other director, we can take up someone else's script and bring our own spin to it, and show nuance in a different way because of our perspective as a mom, or as a woman, or whatever.
That's funny.
So yeah, it is really important. I think it enriches the types of stories that are out in the world.
I think you're reading my notes. I'm just kidding. I don't have.
Sorry.
But I was going to bring up the fact that you were at Bentonville, and how was that experience? Getting to hang out with a legend like Gina Davis. She's amazing, right?
Well, I didn't get to hang out with her that much, but I did get to hear her speak, and she's every bit as amazing a person as you might expect, and she's really creating this legacy with the Gina Davis Institute, where she's really, not only is she focusing on diversity and inclusion with the festival, but they've created a partnership with Final Draft, which is the script writing program that most screenwriters use, where you can actually pull things up and see how many female characters you have in a story and things like, so that even in the early scripting phase, people can be conscious of, so half of the characters are female. Do they actually have half of the lines that are in the story, or do they just show up as a romantic interest for 2 scenes, or, so she's just doing some amazing work, and I feel really honored to be part of that program and to be part of the festival. And Wendy, who is the president of the festival, I was actually just on a Zoom call with her. She, again, it is just a team of amazing people who are committed to this mission, and they don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk.
That's what I like to hear. People who are on the ball, ready to rock and roll now.
Yeah.
While we're talking about these sort of things, who are some directors, and they don't have to be film directors, but it'd be easier for my audience to understand if they were, who you look to and say, those are inspirations for me?
Let's see here. Well, I love if we're thinking more like television, I love Jill Soloway. I think she's brilliant. Actually, Transparent was one of the first things that I ever saw over on cable. But that's for film. I really love the Coen Brothers. I think they are amazing, and we get our little plug reference in with international films. But I think the thing I like a lot about their work is just how even if the film isn't, and of course there's no such thing as a perfect film or a perfect piece of art or whatever, like, even if the story meanders or there's things like that are confusing or whatever, I always feel like their stories have so much heart, and I always care about the characters, and they're usually able to both accomplish that and take some fun, like, narrative storytelling. I feel like they take chances in the way that they portray their stories. Like even the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, the way that whole narrative played out with all of those short stories. I feel like they're risk takers who also have a lot of heart, that aren't just doing it for the risk factor. And that's the type of thing that I always want to bring to my work as well.
Yeah, I can see why that would be important. And honestly, I love the Coen Brothers. Most of the stuff they do is so original and so off the cuff, and that's what I like about film, is when films don't, they're not what you expect them to be. That's good. I think you did take a little bit out of that with this particular film. Now, this is a really fun question we like to ask pretty much everybody we have on. If you're stuck on a desert island, you can only have 2 films with you. What were you taking and why?
Oh my gosh. That's so hard.
Yeah, this is the hardest question I ask. This is the hardest hitting question.
Amelie would be one of them.
All right, this is already going well.
It is my favorite movie of all time. And then I don't know. I'm feeling torn between something like, goodness, a classic like Shawshank Redemption or something like that, and Singing in the Rain, because I grew up on the old musicals and I'm such a nerd for that stuff. So definitely Amelie, and then maybe a tie for second. Does that work?
You know what? I'll allow it because it's 2 great movies. And if you're a musical nerd, you're going to love us, because we actually did like a whole series on musicals.
Oh my gosh.
I absolutely love them. I do. They're amazing.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you picked a musical, I'll allow you to pick a third movie, which is Shawshank Redemption. So that's a good question. Now, I want you to pitch this movie to the people who are maybe on the fence, or maybe they're stuck at home and they're looking through, and there's thousands and thousands of things they could watch. Why do they want to see International Falls? Why is that the choice they should make?
Well, I think any movie that can make you laugh and cry at the same time, and it's ticking some entertainment boxes that a lot of films don't do, and that's the thing that I'm most proud of. And also, in terms of feedback I've gotten from audience members and all the people we spoke to at film festivals over the last year, people really comment on how the characters feel like people they meet in their everyday lives. And I think a lot of times when we see people on the big screen, they seem like larger than life versions of reality, right? Like they are a little glamorized, or they become a caricature of something. And I think in this film, we really did strive for authenticity, even down to the fact that the lead characters, like, they don't wear a lot of makeup, So I think that it's entertaining in terms of being a drama and a comedy, but also it feels like a real slice of real life, which I think is something fun that we can relate to. And I think, right now in the current state of the world, as we are all isolated, it is a story about a woman who feels isolated in her small town, who dares to dream bigger even in the face of those challenges. So I think it's a relevant story for what we're going through right now as well.
I like that answer.
Cool.
I wanted to bring up one more thing just quick that I thought was really interesting. You mentioned that they don't wear a lot of makeup. Mm-hmm. It is just so amazing that Rachel Harris not wearing any makeup, still beautiful.
Oh, good. She's
it's
amazing.
Ridiculous. right?
Gorgeous, yeah.
And then
And
how is
I
it?
love how she didn't, because typically she wears her wide brim glasses, you know, that's
Yeah.
the trademark of most of the characters she plays. And she, you know, boldly, the day we did our makeup test, she was like, I think B doesn't do the glasses. I want to sort of like unmask that and let her just be exposed and vulnerable. And I was like, yes, lady, I love it. I love you. You're awesome.
Yeah, and the other thing is you had Matthew Glave there, who's very famous for being a complete tool in Adam Sandler's Singer. Pretty much everything he's ever in, he's kind of kind of an a-hole, right?
Yeah.
But here, he's not necessarily a bad guy, but he totally is.
Yeah, I mean, in real life, it's like there are a lot of good people who make really bad mistakes, right?
Exactly. Yeah, there's not a black and white thing. There's so many grays, and I like that you play in those grays with his character.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, he's still not right, but he's not really wrong.
No.
His character in The Wedding Singer is wrong, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's
a total jerk. I mean, he totally should have let Drew Barrymore sit in the window seat. Obviously.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Yeah, that's the least of his issues. But yeah, definitely, yeah, complete jerk. Hate that guy. No one likes him. But no, it's been a pleasure speaking to you, Ever. I'm so glad I got to stumble upon this film. And you talked about how you had to do all the PR and everything for yourself by yourself and find all that out. Well, it got to us, so it did a great job.
Yeah.
We're just
well,
happy.
I have John Wildman to thank for that. He's been a great advocate for this film in the last year.
Well, you got another advocate here. We're preaching the gospel. We did our Twitch stream the other day, and people asked us about movies that we watched recently that we were loving, and I mentioned your film, and I told everybody to go check it out if they could. So I'm happy to advocate for International Falls if you haven't seen it. Check it out on video on demand, starring Rachel Harris, Matthew Glave, and Rob Hubel. I've had the pleasure of talking to the wonderful Amber McGinnis, the director of this film. Amber, anything you'd like to say to all the people out there that will be listening to this?
Just stay healthy, stay well, stay home, and rent a lot of independent films while you're home and have extra time on your hands.
I think that's a perfect way to go out. Listen to what Amber says. She's much smarter than me or most of us. Rent this film. Rent all the independent films you can. Learn some new experiences. Maybe experience some stuff that you maybe never gave a shot. With that, everybody, this has been William from Film Snob Reviews, and thank you